We have eliminations this week. What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and we've got our Week 2 playoff eliminator. Talked about it last week. Didn't really know how this series would go. But yeah, we can start eliminating teams, and we have 4 of them that we can eliminate here after Week 1, and we'll get into the entire playoff picture here in this video. So Kennesaw State, as you guys mentioned in the comments last week, they really should have already been eliminated because they are not eligible for postseason play. So Kennesaw State, they're out. New Mexico, they are out after they have now lost 2 games. UConn and UMass are out. They only have 1 loss, but they're independent teams, so there's just no chance for them to get in as an at-large. I don't think their schedules will be tough enough. So we can eliminate UConn and UMass. New Mexico, I was kind of back and forth on this team because these are my thoughts here on the group of 5 teams. If you lose 2 games in the MAC, the Sun Belt, or the Conference USA, you're eliminated, because even if you win the conference, a 2-loss MAC champion, a 2-loss Sun Belt champion, a 2-loss Conference USA champion, they would not be the highest ranked group of 5 champion unless something crazy happens. A 2-loss Mountain West champion or a 2-loss American champion is probably going to be those 2-loss teams probably going to be ranked ahead of a 1-loss Conference USA, Sun Belt, or MAC champion. So you can kind of start eliminating teams out of those conferences with 2 losses, and I think 3 losses in the Mountain West and in the American Conference. But for New Mexico, I think we can actually go ahead and eliminate them when you look at the losses that they've had. In the Week 0 loss to an FCS team, I mean, technically, if they win out and there's a lot of chaos, maybe there's a path for them to if they were to win. And they're not going to win the Mountain West, it doesn't really matter. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and eliminate them. But for some of the other teams in the Mountain West, so like let's say Boise State, if they lose to Oregon and then they lose to another team that they play, I don't even know who they play, Wyoming or whatever. That 2-loss Boise State in that scenario would not be eliminated because one of their losses would be to a really good team. And again, they'd still have a great shot at winning the Mountain West because it would be a non-conference. So there are a lot of factors that kind of went into that decision of me eliminating New Mexico. Not that it matters because they were going to get eliminated soon anyways. But as far as the video goes, yeah, we can eliminate those 4 teams. And again, if we see a 2-loss team out of the MAC, the Sun Belt, or Conference USA, I think we can start to add those to these eliminations. And now we're just going to look at the playoff picture. It's going to be a while before we can really eliminate Power 4 teams, but we can just kind of look at the playoff picture each week and how it's changing. And then maybe at some point we'll actually break this down into the at-large bids, if you're eliminated from that or if you're eliminated from your conference as we continue this series. So yeah, we can still do this series. It's going to be a little different this year, but yeah, Week 2 we're already getting some teams eliminated. So yeah, we can do a playoff eliminator, and I know a lot of you love this series, so we're going to do it the best that we can. All right, let's go to the SEC. I don't think the favorites have changed here. Alabama, Georgia, Ole Miss, Texas, those appear to be the favorites to win the SEC. And then you look at your top at-large contenders: LSU, Tennessee, Texas A&M, and Missouri. I know LSU just lost, but there's still a path for them to get to 10-2, and even 9-3. If you come out of the SEC, you can still get in. The problem for LSU though is if they go 10-2, that would mean 1 SEC loss, and then that means they're going to go to the SEC championship. And if they lose that, that's going to be a 3rd loss. I don't know how that would go. So yeah, LSU, I'm still going to put there. Same thing with Texas A&M, the exact same scenario. Notre Dame, USC, they could very well be top 5 teams, top 10 teams at the end of the season. So I still think those are top at-large contenders. And then dark horses in the SEC: Auburn, Kentucky, and Oklahoma. Again, schedule sets up really well for Auburn. I think Oklahoma's good enough, but their schedule probably does not set up well enough. And then Kentucky, we'll see. They look good in their opener. All right, let's go to the Big Ten now. We've seen some changes here. So I've added Penn State into the favorites, and Oregon is teetering, but I'm not going to overreact to one game. I'm not going to move them off of this favorites line. We'll see what they look like against Boise State. Penn State's offense has changed. It's just different, and they look like a team that could maybe win the Big Ten. So I think these are the 3 favorites now. Last week, again, we just had Ohio State and Oregon. Now we add Penn State to the list, and then we go to the top at-large contenders: Michigan, Iowa, USC. These teams, I think, can all get to the playoff without winning the Big Ten, and I think there's a path for all three of them. Iowa, if they can beat Iowa State, I think they've got a really good shot to go 10-2. USC, now that they've beaten LSU, they've got a shot to go maybe 10-2 or even 9-3 and get in with a tough schedule. Same thing for Michigan. They play a pretty tough schedule, so 9-3 might be enough for them. So these are your top at-large contenders in the Big Ten. Only change here is Penn State moved up to the favorites line, and these three teams have stayed the same. Although I feel better about USC, I'm not ready to put them in the favorites category just yet, but they should be there. All right, let's go to the dark horses now. Wisconsin, Nebraska. Wisconsin didn't look great week 1, but I still think there's potential. Let's see, another game. They get Alabama in a couple of weeks. We'll see if they're competitive in that game. If they're not, if they get blown out by 30, 40 points, I think we can probably go ahead and knock them off of this list. But Nebraska was, they were interesting against an inferior opponent. We'll see what they look like as they get some tougher competition. They'll have Colorado this week, right? So that should be a fun one there. All right, let's go to the ACC. I've changed things a lot in the ACC already. So Miami moves into the favorites. I think they were actually already, I think we had Miami, Clemson, and Florida State on the favorites list. But Miami moves into the favorites. Louisville moves into the favorites. And if you look at their schedule, I'm telling you, they've got a great shot to get back to the ACC championship. I think they might lose a couple of non-conference games, but if you look at their conference schedule, sets up really well for them. They play Clemson and Miami, and I believe if they win one of those two games, they will go to the ACC championship. So it's going to come down to that. They do have Clemson on the road, but they get Miami at home. And I still got Clemson here. I know they lost to Georgia, but it was Georgia. And if you watch my preseason predictions, I predicted them to lose to Georgia and then win every other game on their schedule. And I still think that's a possibility, especially looking at how bad Florida State is and the other teams on their schedule. I think that is possible. So don't count out Clemson just yet. But Miami does look like the best team in this conference, at least after week 1. All right, and then we've got our top at-large contender. That's Notre Dame. Not technically in the ACC, but it fits for me to put them here because I think they're the only real contender outside of those favorite teams. This is the only team that can. I just don't think there are any other ACC teams that are going to get in outside of Clemson and Miami. I guess Miami would be the best team to get in potentially as an at-large team, but again, they're one of the favorites. So Miami would be in this list if you didn't have them in the favorites. Clemson is going to be tough now that they've already got a non-conference loss, and then Louisville, I don't know. I just don't see it really happening for them. So then how about your dark horses in the ACC? SMU, North Carolina, NC State, Georgia Tech, and Boston College. So you see we've eliminated Florida State. They're already 0-2. They look terrible. I don't think they're a contender at all. Boston College might be. Georgia Tech might be. We need to see more, but I'm going to put them in here for now. NC State, they struggled. They didn't look great, but they won. North Carolina beat Minnesota. SMU bounced back, played better this past week. At this point, we could put every team in the ACC on this list. I took Virginia Tech off. They lost to Vanderbilt, but maybe they could find themselves back on this list. We'll see. But those are the dark horses in the ACC. Then we go to the Big 12 favorites. No changes here. I still think these are the favorites. I still think West Virginia, that was a non-conference game, so it really didn't affect them. I still think this is a really good team, a really solid, not a really good team, a really solid team. And I still think Oklahoma State, Utah probably the favorites, but I'm not ready to move any of these other teams down just yet. And then we go to the dark horses: TCU, Colorado, Texas Tech, Iowa State, UCF. I know Texas Tech struggled, but they won, and it was just week 1, so I'm going to keep them here for now. Colorado, interesting team, of course, and then TCU, I was really impressed with. I watched that full game against Stanford, and they should have won by like 30 points. They outplayed them. They just had so many stupid mistakes and just, didn't play well. But their offense was clicking, and this looks like a dangerous team. So I'm telling you right now, don't sleep on TCU. I think they could be in this conversation when all is said and done. And then the Group of 5 favorites. I'm not really going to make any changes here. We'll see as we get into the season a little bit more. Miami, Ohio lost, but they played Northwestern tough. Liberty, of course, everyone's favorite there in Conference USA. App State, they get Clemson. That'll be interesting. Memphis has Florida State coming up. That'll be a fun game. And then Boise State, we'll see what they do against Oregon. These are the favorites in my opinion. I don't really know. I don't spend a ton of time in digging into these Group of 5 teams, so I know a lot of people have different opinions here, but those are just kind of the favorites in my opinion. And so we'll see if which one of those teams, or if it's another team that can emerge out of the Group of 5 level. So that's the playoff eliminator heading into week 2. would love to get your thoughts on just the playoff picture and who you think might be eliminated next. I think we're going to have a lot of eliminations this week, because I think a lot of those Sun Belt, Conference USA, and MAC teams that already have a loss think they could lose their second game. And so I think these eliminations will start piling up pretty quickly. First with a lot of Group of 5 teams, and then as we get into the month of October, then the Power 4 teams will start falling and they'll start being eliminated as well. But thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more here on the SG1 Sports College Football Channel.